20 years, that's how long we played the roles. Wife, mother, partner, provider, until it all changed.
We honestly didn't see it coming. Then again, maybe we did. But divorce didn't break us, it rebirthed us.
Now we're navigating motherhood, healing, dating,
friendships, religion, and sharing how we started over.
This is Uncharted Phases, a podcast for anyone starting over and owning every step. Hi, Raechal, episode 2.
Hey, episode 2.
I'm excited for this one.
Excited and not at the same time.
Really?
Well, I mean, yeah, because, what are we talking about? Episode 2.
I was going to say, this one I feel like will be easy to talk about. Then, it's all just mixed up.
Yeah.
And hard.
Yeah, because this episode, it's the big one. I mean, it's divorce, right?
I'm probably the one that most people are extra curious about.
Yeah.
Us.
Yeah.
We're telling our personal stories.
Well, so in a way, that is what I'm kind of excited about, is because for me personally, I was pretty quiet. If you asked me, I told you, but I tried really hard not to be too public about it. And I mean, I didn't even post about it until we separated November, and it wasn't even until that next May that I finally posted something on social media about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's keep quiet. You keep close for a while.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. But then there's some people that they celebrate it. For me, there was, grief and failure and right. And so I didn't want to. If I was that person though that maybe was in a physically abusive relationship, or I think there's different reasons. I do think, divorce parties are a thing. People celebrate that. But for me, it just wasn't like that.
Yeah. It was definitely a hard thing process.
So for you guys, who said it first? Who's the one that initiated it?
I feel like I was 100% the initiator. I'm the one that pushed for it all the way. And parts of me look back and, I don't know, feel a little bad for how that was, because on the flip side, if it was me, on the opposite end, just saying, oh, and by the way, I'm getting divorced from you and this is how it is, But with that being said, there was a lot of work for a lot.
That's what I was just going to say. You can't tell me it came out of nowhere.
No, it didn't. And that's the thing, is I had been in a spot where I wasn't happy, and I consciously made a choice to stay.
Yeah.
Knowing that I was taking one for the team for a long time. And I thought I could do it for longer, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I could say, well, I can just stick in this phase. But I just didn't. To me, my biggest fear about divorce wasn't what people would think of me, wasn't
really
would understand. No,
yeah.
I was losing my babies half the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're right.
To me, it was I'm not willing to make myself in a happier place.
Yeah, it felt selfish.
Because then I would lose my kids half the time, and that, it just wasn't worth it to me for a long time. For me, it was more worth it to stick it through and push and push and push. And then until it wasn't.
Yeah.
I remember I had a friend saying to me once, one day you're just going to know something will switch and it will be different. And you'll just know that's when it's time.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened to me. It was there was one day, one moment. And I was like,
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it surprised myself. Honestly, that was probably my most scared day of the whole phase.
Yeah.
Was the day I realized I was really...
I had a friend that said that to me once, that you may know you need to, you may know you want to, but you don't know you're ready until literally the moment that you are. Yeah. And you can even surprise yourself.
That too.
Yes. It was exactly. And I thought, I had a conversation with her and I'm I need to do this. I can't. And she was like, then you're not ready. And she's like, you'll know. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And it was true. It was a singular moment.
It's helpful for people to know. I mean, just you remember your friend telling you that.
Yeah.
Same with me. It was monumental for me. And then even more when it actually happened. And I was like, she was right.
Yeah. You just know.
That's also where I have zero regrets of staying as long as I did.
Yeah.
It wasn't time. And it's not in anyone else's time frame, whether or not your family or your friends that knew what you were going through, or same on mine, felt we needed to earlier.
Yep.
I mean, I have a sister that was come on,
what are you doing?
Be done.
Yeah.
And I could never, ever feel that moment. And I waited until I did. And I'm so grateful, because I have that moment to own
Yeah.
for here on out.
So did you guys go through a process of, was it just, that's it, we're getting divorced, moved out? Or was it like, I don't know, let's separate. I don't know, let's do therapy. I don't know. Like, what was the process in which you finally were like, time to cut the cord?
Yeah. So after my moment of like, things are different.
Yeah.
I definitely can't recover from here. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
way I can go on. I remember like telling him like, yeah, I think it's different this time. Like, I don't think I can stay married to you. And I think that he didn't take me seriously. Oh, he didn't take me seriously.
Probably because he thought you'd get over
for
it.
a long time. I think he thought we were just in an argument.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't even an argument though, Raechal. Like, for me, for like us, it was like me just bluntly being like, it's different. Like, I can never sleep in the same bed with you again. And it was from that moment on, like, we didn't sleep in the same bed. And it was, we separated, like, I had that conversation with him in September, and he didn't move out of my house until like the first week in June.
Yeah. So it's almost the same for us.
That's what, how long did you guys?
So November, and then he moved out in March. Yeah.
Which I appreciate that time too.
I agree.
We sat the time that we worked on, like, we didn't tell our kids even until right before he was like maybe a week or 2 weeks before he moved out. And I feel like that also was really good for us to prepare what we wanted to say to them.
Yeah.
It was a good time for us to make sure we were really making the choice that we were making, and we were going to own it, because I don't know, even though it was tricky and hard. So it was a little easier for me because my husband traveled a lot. My husband was a pilot, so half the week he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But it still was sad.
So I think it's important to talk about, like, you know, we plan these episodes ahead of time, and we talk ahead of time a little bit about what we're going to talk about. And one of the things that I know you and I both wanted to make sure that we were clear about in even doing this podcast was that we're talking about our experiences and what our experience was like being married to this person. But when you go through something like this, you know, that person is still your child's co-parent and your child's father. And so, you know, you walk that fine line of, you don't want to disparage someone. And obviously, and I think in your decree and in my decree, you know, we have that in there, that there's a disparagement clause. And you don't, you know, even legally want to get yourself in trouble where we're on this public forum talking about it. And so, you know, we both decided very quickly that, like, anything that we talk about, it would be, how did this make us feel? Not, and then he did this, or he said that, or he this. It's, this event happened and this is how I felt about it, or this event happened and this was my experience with it. And so that was one of the things that we agreed on early on that I really liked about that. Did you at all feel like culturally, religiously, or any, like, was that a basis at all for why you stayed? Because 20 years is a long time.
Married for 20 years.
Yeah.
It is so weird. Some people are
yes. Yeah. I mean, it went fast, but like, yeah, it's a long time. So
long time. And honestly, like, culturally wise, that wasn't weird for us to get married super young.
Yep.
That's where, like, we grew up. That's pretty normal. And actually, I still see that. Like, our daughters are 19.
Yep.
I see people her friend age, they're saying they're getting married next year. And I'm like,
I know. Yeah. I still see it. And it drives me crazy, but I do. It's predominantly, I would say, in our culture, which, you know, we're not going to get into that a lot, but that was one of the ways that we met, is that we went to the same church. But, you know, culturally, there's a culture that goes with it. And so that just went along with it.
And I think that that's like something that's just taught for so long. Like, yeah, you just stick it out through the heart and just put up with whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
very old fashioned.
Yes. And there was like things I definitely, if it was my daughter putting up with what I was putting up with, I would have been like, get in the back seat. I'm driving you.
I know.
Here. Like,
I know.
That's the night. Like, But then for some reason, like, I'm like, well, okay, I'll just let this slide, you know? Like, and too, I feel like that's just part of like being, when you get married young, you don't even know.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Big, serious relationships.
And you don't understand it.
Dynamics like that. So you kind of just like roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And I feel like you kind of both learn as you go. And sometimes you get yourself like in holes you don't realize you got yourself in, and then it's too late. You're just like, here I am.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what made me want to stay for so long. not want to stay. It's just like,
Willing
okay,
to.
well, now I'm like, I've had 2 babies.
Yeah.
I don't have a job. I'm across the country with no family. Like, I
Yeah.
literally have no option. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in it this far. Might as well try to stick it out and see if another 5 years will make it better. Is that
Yeah.
kind of how you felt too, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I always had said as long as I looked at my marriage as a scale, and as long as the scales always tipped in his favor, I stayed. And then as soon as the scales started to even it out, I was like, the minute the scale tips, like I'm done. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me,
You did see that.
I did. Yeah. And again, it was the same as that, it was separation first, and then it was move out, and then it was 6 or 7 months after that filing, and then it was a year.
A long time you waited.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like he moved out and I didn't file right away because I knew, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I knew, like, he had always threatened that if I ever actually went through with a divorce, that it would be difficult. And, we always, like, I refer to it as like the Godfather, or like he would take me to the mat, like a wrestling mat. And like, when you watch someone, I mean, when you think about like when you would go to high school wrestling and you see him, it's so intertwined. It's such a struggle. It's so like you see like that. I mean, so I knew that like it was going to be a wrestle.
Yeah.
And it was like, am I ready for that? Could I take on that fight? And then you start to decide like, I'm willing to take on that fight because this just can't be it. But I tried really hard to make it amicable. And I wanted to do the whole Jen Gardner and Ben Affleck divorce.
Traveled together for so long.
Yeah, we had every holiday together until, so it's been 3.5 years. This last Christmas was the first Christmas we did not have together. But I was determined because we did 4th of July. We did family vacations. We did nesting, which if you're not familiar with nesting is we kept the marital home. And when he would come every other week, I would leave. Yeah. And so I would leave and he would leave, but the children stayed.
Jake offered me that. Jake was like,
yeah.
And I was like,
you're out.
That's where it's so different because you're like, we'll see how this works. And I was
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not.
It was hard for me, but like I kept a lock on the primary bedroom door. And so I had my space and I would lock it when I left. And then we were lucky we had a guest room and that was his space.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way that I did everything really helped with my kids and helped them to be, more easier to deal with and more accepting. And
that's
better.
The part. That's a good thing for advice to people is like everyone's right isn't the same.
100%.
Like you get to do what works for your family and you get to set up what works for your situation. Even if somebody else says, well, this works, I promise you like this. You just got to follow your gut so much when you're going through big life changes like this. Like even to the point of like, I know this is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah. I will say too, the other thing that we're seeing nowadays in our society is that chivalry is so dead. It used to be when you went through a divorce, the husband packed his bag and left. And I'm learning about friends where he refuses to leave, or he takes the basement, she takes the upstairs, or, because there is such a thing now in certain states over when you do leave the marital home and who has possession and, how all that works.
I never even thought about. Like, I didn't. And I don't know if that was just being naive or just, I have no idea.
So I learned that in Texas, unless he vacates the home, and actually makes a point of vacating the home, which is packing a bag and like you're making it clear you're vacating the home, that you can't change the locks, you can't, you cannot take possession. But and again, every state's different, and this is just our experiences. It's not legal advice, but
this is kind of an for me.
Yeah.
We're giving always legal advice.
On legal, our experience advice. But yeah, so for me, like, he was willing to leave, but there was a process with it. Like, at first it was leaving our bedroom and going to the guest bedroom. Then it was the guest bedroom, and he got an apartment 10 minutes away. But it was nesting. And then circumstances changed, and he ended up moving to New York, which ended up being for my kids and our experience a blessing in disguise. But yeah, it was. So for you, when Jake did move out, where did he move to?
Just like an apartment building, literally like a mile away, which
Yeah.
was so helpful. Like looking at it now, I'm so glad that he was close. At first I was like,
That was us too.
he's gonna know like when I'm home or what I'm doing, and I thought this is still he had a really hard time giving up the house, which everything is like I would be devastated too. So it was like he was constantly like back at the house, and like I'd come home from work and he'd be like in the living room with the kids. I'm like, what are you doing in my house?
Oh, yeah.
That's where
hard.
Like, you're trying to like be friends when you're nice and kind. You know, there was a point where I'm like, you cannot be in my house when I come home anymore.
Yeah.
Like we have got to move past this. You know. Yeah. So he was close. But actually, like looking back, it was so good for our kids.
Yeah.
It was so good for our kids that they could go there really quick. They could stop in after school and eat snack with him. Or like my daughter would stop there after her friends and eat a bowl of ice cream with him. It was good for the transition for our kids to have him so close.
Transition. That's the best way of saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would say that's the best way to look always is like, I had a cousin, no, actually, Jake's cousin.
Yeah.
They got divorced and they posted online like, hey, we got divorced.
Yeah.
We don't want you to pick sides. If anything, we want you to pick our kids. And I was like, oh, like this really big thing from you.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Like, that's the best advice. Like, when you're going through really hard things, if there's not something that needs to be like, this is the rule, this is what's happened because of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, the hard transition for me is best for my kids. And through, like, I'm going to try to make my kids' situation a little easier.
I agree with that. I would say, I mean, obviously, I left my house every other week. So I was a hand over fist willing to do the harder, as long as if it was hard as hell on me, I didn't care as long as it wasn't on my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's our choices. It's hard to watch your kids like be stuck in like the consequences for choices. That's always going to be hard, I feel like.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
So I think some of this topic is going to be a uncharted confessions topic, at least for me. So we'll try to get as far as we can with it. But let's talk.
Definitely some like deeper, like why.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, into the why. So like we've talked about, that we knew it was coming. How and who initiated it. Yeah. And there's no singular. But sometimes there's a straw that broke the camel's back, or, so for you, why did you get a divorce?
So for me, like I said, I met my husband when I was 15, right? Like we were in the same friend group. We had friends dating. And then when we started dating, it was just easy. It was fun. He was like my best friend. Like we had fun together, and everyone would be like, of course you guys are together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I feel like when you're in that young phase, you're not who you truly are going to be.
Yeah.
Right? So like over the years, like I need the deeper emotion. I need deep conversation. I need more like things. My ex, you know him. He is fun.
He's a good time guy.
Life of the party.
So true.
But for
the jokester.
Like everyone loves Jake,
So true.
It is how it is. And that's the thing is he's fun and he's got good qualities that way. But I need some depth. And that's something that, like, I remember reading once, someone was like, everyone can only be who they really are, right? You can't change that.
You can't make
That's where, like, things started to get, like, over the years, I realized we're never going to hit the depth that I need to be, like, fulfilled for a life part. So that was there was that. There was, I don't know, we really didn't see eye to eye on so many things, Raechal. Like, I remember Jake when he was like, I just don't know why you want a divorce. And I was like, I've told you so many times. I don't know what else I could do rather than just like write you a list.
Yeah.
And he was like, write me the list. I was like, really? Okay. So I like started running like finances, like spirituality, sexual things, the way we want to parent our kids.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, every major life thing that you would want to be somewhat aligned on with your spouse,
Yeah.
I was not aligned with Jake in
Yeah.
all the areas.
Yeah.
And it honestly, I'm kind of glad you made me write the list, because it was just like one of those things of just like, yes, I'm making the right choice.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What about you? Well, I mean, I could tell some more, but that would definitely be like in the after.
Well, yeah, and that's why I was saying like
Because also we want to be respectful to our
yes.
they are the fathers of our children.
Yes. So we again, I think one of the big things about us is we want to be open books, but also respectful. So the open book and the deeper part comes in confessions. So listen to confessions, and we'll get a little bit more raw there. But for me, and my kids all know this, but what a lot of people don't know is that I had dealt with being married to a sex addict our whole marriage, and I didn't know. And I didn't find out until I was 5 months pregnant with our first child. Yeah. And so that kind of was a huge barrier for us because it consistently was a problem. Infidelity was a problem in my marriage.
Yeah. And that actually, we had talked.
Yeah.
We kind of start these conversations. We're like,
and then we're like, save it. Yeah.
So we haven't gotten like very deep into all these things. And I actually was super surprised about that when you told me that.
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I'm very surprised. Yeah. Especially that it's been going on for so long.
I know. Yeah. In fact, the first time I had found this conversation and plans on MySpace. That's how So yeah, that's what is so crazy is I was going to night school finishing my degree, and on the computer clicked the wrong thing, and I found it. And what I had seen, it was he had left his MySpace open. And so then you see all these messages, and right after that, they had broken up, and there was all these she got really mad and went to all of his friends on MySpace and outed him. And so we learned very quickly how to lie and just say like people made things up. And, we'll get deeper into what is it like being married to a sex addict? What is it like, dealing with infidelity? Again, that's all stuff for the confession part. And I will tell people like, take the infidelity out of it, and we still shouldn't have been married. Yeah. And it was, all the things that you think you like about somebody became all the things that I didn't like about somebody. And I thought it was great that we were opposites, and then it became absolutely terrible that we were opposites, and it became very toxic. And then, I was looking for, I need a support system. I'm an anxious person, and sometimes I needed someone that would talk me off the ledge, because if you are somebody who deals with anxiety, your feelings in your brain are way bigger than they actually are in real life.
Oh, 100%. And that's the worst part about anxiety.
Yes.
You understand it makes no sense.
I know it, but I can't.
You're in a panic attack and you're like, I know this is all just me creating this.
Yeah.
But you can't control it.
Yeah.
I did.
But he fueled the anxiety. He didn't dissipate it.
They add to the stress.
Yes. Yes. And so that was like one of the huge things for me is I'm like, he's not the calm to my storm. Yeah. And that's like was a huge catalyst.
It's just so crazy because anyone that knows Dave and you, I always thought like, oh, he's for sure the say it wrong.
Yeah.
But then like come to find out like actually no, he's not.
Yeah. I will say like he was the best at a party. He was the best at couples date night because he was really great at conversation, carrying his own, looking chill. And then it was a completely different environment, which, he is diagnosed ADD also, and they are very good at compartmentalizing. If you know anything about what it's like having ADD. And so I wasn't. I carried it all with me everywhere. Yeah. And he was just really good at compartmentalizing. And so that, again, was another problem. But it just, it became such a toxic environment for our children. Yeah. And that's when I realized when the arguments and the cruelty was happening in front of them, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. That's when I was like, oh, I don't think this is going to last. Yeah.
But honestly, so on the flip side, when you have like those moments that are like so hard when you're married and you know you're like going to divorce, on the flip side, to not have those anymore,
100%.
Like, okay, it was all worth it.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like the fact that I, in my own home, can create the energy I want to create now,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's epic. Like, there's not any of that negative energy between me and my ex, you know? Like, my kids come home and they know what they're going to get 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much peaceful all the time.
Same.
Like, peaceful.
Yeah.
Even through the mothering, even through the hard choices, even through all the things, like, it's just a safe zone now.
Yeah.
Which I love. And all the time I'm like, no regrets.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I think we're similar in that we've talked, in fact, not in depth, but a little bit about how I'm super into energy and negative energy and positive energy and auras and what the energy that you put off. And that was one thing that I needed to have in my life was peace. I needed peace in my home. And it's the same for me as it is for you, is there is no arguing. Like, sure, there's bickering with my kids as siblings, but there is not like the fighting like there was, and I don't fight with my kids, and it is a peaceful environment, and it's so chill and relaxed. And I always thought that it was me, that I brought this uptight, anxious energy, and then you realize like, oh, it wasn't me. Yeah, it's such a validation.
It could just be too. Like, if you said like, how many times like I just knew we weren't supposed to be
oil and water.
Yeah. It's like both of you could have been toxic for each other, and it just created a toxic environment, you know? And for me, I felt like I could see, since my ex was in the military and also a pilot, he's gone a lot. And so I got to see what it was like when he wasn't there versus what it was like when he was there. And it was very night and day for me. I think even like one of my kids, when we told them, I told all my kids separate. Did you tell your kids together or separate?
So, I'm trying to remember, but my kids, no, we told them together. Mm-hmm.
I just knew all of my kids were going to need a complete different delivery package for their
so crazy. Yeah.
And so I found just like moments that I could have a sit down conversation all within like probably 48 hours of each other, to give them. And I remember like one of my kids said, oh no, like I knew this was coming because I like how the house felt when Dad was here.
Yeah.
It was not good. You know, like it was like a relief for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which that's something we can talk about too.
One of my kids was like that.
We tell our kids and
the
different experiences that they have, their reactions, because that's actually probably one of my most heartbreaking things is having to tell my kids that.
Did you tell them did you tell them together that you were separating?
No, they didn't know we were separate the whole time. So, Jake would sleep when he was home. He would sleep down in our bed, and I would go up. We had a love sack upstairs, and I would just go sleep on the love sack and then be doing my thing when they woke up.
Guys,
I just didn't want to like add that stress. I knew it was coming, and that would be awkward and hard. And my boys are such sweethearts; they would have never let me sleep on the love sack.
Yeah,
you know, they would have died if they would have known I was out there. So. I don't know. We didn't tell them anything separation. We told them we got through Christmas. Jake didn't want to move out till after Christmas. He wanted to have one last Christmas there, which is fine. It worked out okay. But we told them that Christmas break after Christmas and before he moved out in New Year's. And it was just like I don't know. That was a really hard phase for me.
Yeah.
The getting separated, I was actually really excited. Like I felt like a relief of like, okay, it's coming. Like I was really excited. And then like after Jake moved out, it was like, okay, we're doing this, you know? But that phase of like the week of telling my kids and Jake actually moving out was actually probably the hardest out of all of it.
Yeah.
Did you have a hard time when Dave? Oh, I guess because you did the nesting.
So the thing is with, again, like I'll keep it a little bit surface, but with sex addiction, there's a pattern. With any addiction, there's a pattern, which again, we can talk about in confessions. But so you kind of start to recognize when the pattern's coming. And I started to recognize when he was white knuckling it.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it like with addiction, it's you're holding you're white knuckling it, and so it creates this energy, and so there can be some kind of like aggression that comes out with that, and so there was a moment that happened, and it was a fight that became aggressive, and my children witnessed that. And that was the moment that I was like, if I don't teach them that this isn't okay, then they're going to think this is acceptable and they're going to end up in this situation. And so I had that conversation with all of them, with the two oldest, and then all of them together, that like, listen, you all saw what happened. He apologized to them. He explained that what he did was wrong and that he shouldn't have, that shouldn't have come out. That temper shouldn't have come out. That aggression shouldn't have come out. And it terrified, the two kids saw it happen, the oldest two. And it really scared them. And so he was very apologetic. And I thought, okay. And I just thought, I want to show them that like, this isn't okay behavior, but like you can work through it. And so that's why we separated.
Like
I wasn't all out yet.
To show, hey, this is never.
Yes.
But like,
yes,
we're also not just going to throw in the towel because you saw one thing.
Yes. So when we separated, I really thought like there is a possibility, things might get better. And then the white knuckling, the day before our daughter's 16th birthday, the white knuckling turned into a phone call from a woman. And she messaged me. She audio called me on Facebook, and I was like, who? I didn't even know that was a thing. And I'm getting this audio call on Facebook, and I ignored it. And then I got these messages on Facebook. And we've talked about it since then. And there were, a lot of it can be based on insecurity. I was at a very, very successful point in my career, and that was difficult, and we weren't talking about it. The communication was down. There's never a justification for infidelity, but that was the catalyst for me when that happened, and her age, and I realized like, so she was 21, and this 21-year-old girl's calling me and sending me videos and screenshots and, multiple videos. And
she was angry at him or something?
Yeah, because he he had told her that he was separated and going through a difficult time. And she found on Facebook that was completely the opposite, because it was. And so I remember that I was like, you've got to leave. You've got to leave the house. I had this conversation, like, it was the most out-of-body experience ever. I remember I was sitting in a parking lot because I had to pull over because I randomly was like, that's weird. And I was driving, and then it all unfolded. He moved out, but to a hotel, because he firmly believed, as in every other instance of the infidelity, that I would get over it, because I always had.
Like, we had the conversations. He knew I didn't love him like that. He knew. But I think he was just so shocked I was actually through with it that's why he didn't take me serious.
Same. So he moved into a hotel, and it was right before spring break. And so we had to go on this spring break trip together, our 16-year-old, for her birthday gift, got to bring a friend. And so
Girl, we did the same thing. Remember the crew?
It was so stupid.
Like, after he had moved out, and we were because we bought it and gave it to our kids earlier. And I'm like, we can do this. We were married for 20 years. How did
nightmare? I was randomly crying, and my kids couldn't understand. And last minute, I made my mother come with me, and they could not understand why we were on this family vacation. And Mima, and why there was 2 hotel rooms, and he was in a hotel room with the other girl, with the little girls, and I was with my mom. It made absolutely no sense to them, and I thought I did a great job faking it. I found out later. Terrible.
No.
They knew. They were like, well, we knew something was up because, you weren't yourself the whole time. So, but yeah.
He didn't move out until after you had done all the nesting and all the.
No. So so he, in November, he went from, so it was November, 20, July 24, it was final. So November 21 was when we separated. Yeah, because that'll be 4 years this November. So November 21, we separated. And that was when our kids knew he moved to a guest room.
Okay.
And then the day before our daughter's 16th birthday, he moved out into a hotel.
Okay.
And then I let him come back, and he lived in a hotel for a while because he thought I was going to get over it, until I finally was like, listen, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, it's happening.
Yeah.
I'm not. And so you need to look for an apartment. And that was by, oh gosh, I mean, I think he lived 2 months in a hotel because he thought for sure I was going to get over it. Yeah. And I was really nice. I packed him half the pots and pans. I was like, listen, I have this, we had a study with a couch in it. I'm like, take the couch, take a desk, take a dresser.
Texas, that's also another thing about laws and how it's different. Texas is like a 50-50 state. You split all 50-50 everything.
Yes.
Legally, you would have to say, you want this
inventory.
Jake took my his nightstand. I kept mine. We both have one nightstand in our house with the lamp that was on it, So my ex didn't take a lot of things. He actually was, I think part of soothing his soul was fun to go buy new furniture for him. Every man wants a recliner. The recliner couch.
Yeah.
He was so excited for his recliner couch, So he really didn't take a ton of things like that out of the house.
So he didn't either. And then he got 2 months after that, he got an apartment. And then less than 6 months after that, he moved to New York. And when he moved to New York, he didn't take anything. He did. It was fast. And, he thought for sure my understanding, I should say, I can't speak for him or say what he was thinking, but, my understanding was what had happened previously is we had separated one other time when we were living in Utah. And then we got back together and I moved to Texas.
Same thing.
Exactly.
Fresh starts.
Yes. And so even when he was living in New York, I still hadn't filed, because I was still trying to get him comfortable and feeling okay and feeling it was such a process. Yeah. And you know what? That's why
every situation is completely different.
So Jinx.
And that's your situation. You're he moved out, lived in a hotel, Jake, when he had his apartment, he went and got his apartment and then he came home to pack. That was probably one of the hardest days of my life, was watching him pack his things. And do you want?
I didn't stay.
Crazy?
Yeah,
is I wanted the divorce so bad. I was so ready and excited for that chapter to close.
Yeah,
that was probably I cried like someone died while he was packing.
Well, it is.
It's it's such a weird face. I remember standing there watching him load up, I'll cry talking about loading up this trunk that has been in our house forever of his high school things, and I'm like, that's not even my trunk, that's his stuff. I'm like, why am I so sad to remove it? And it was this chapter closing.
Yeah.
And the man that I just had 4 kids with, that I basically grew up with, is moving out of my home right now. And I'm my heart and my soul was so conflicted, but I was just grieving ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's like, do you want to come see the apartment with the kids? And I'm like, no, I can't. I stayed home and cried hysterically.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest 24 hours. That was probably the hardest day out of all of it.
Yeah.
Just watching him move. And we stood in the kitchen, actually. It's such a random, but that last night he slept in my house. I remember he came in and I've been crying all day, and he stood on one side of the kitchen cabinets and I stood on the other, and we both just stared at each other and sobbed, because it was just the weirdest
end of an era.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was an overwhelming feeling for sure. And Ron, I'm actually really grateful for that moment, because it was a good solid of this is really hard for both of us. Even we know we need to do this.
Yeah.
So it was sad.
Well, yeah.
It's obviously sad.
Yeah.
And then the next day I'm like, all right, I got to do something. I remember I went to my workout class and I was a zombie. It was a 6 a.m. class, and I thought, this will make me feel better. no, should have stayed home that day. I was just choking back the tears that day. It was such a weird phase for sure.
Oh, yeah. Weird face.
I'll probably
That's not funny, but
that's how I get through my life. I tell myself every day, it's just a phase. This isn't forever.
Yeah.
It will be fine.
Yeah, it was a little bit different for me, which, you know, I think we'll get into this when we talk about mental health, but there had been I had learned I didn't like emotion, and my ex-husband didn't like it when I expressed emotion. And so after like our second argument that I cried, he rolled his eyes, and that was it for me. I locked it up, and I lost my ability to cry and to grieve. Yeah. And then there was one other instance that we went through something, which we'll talk about when we talk about with mental health. And that it was the first time I'd had a nervous breakdown and experienced grief, depression, anxiety, like all of that came in a moment, in a whooshing moment that I couldn't control. And then you go to therapy, you get on medication, and you rebuild yourself. And when he moved out, I had spent, I mean, like I said, he was white knuckling it, and I knew it was coming. So I was taking HM classes a week. I was getting Botox. I was getting my hair done, and I was doing everything so that it wouldn't happen, thinking it was me.
Not even realizing you were doing those things. You were just putting up that wall of like, okay, okay.
Yeah. And then once I realized, and then it happened, and I realized it doesn't matter how I look. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't. Yeah.
I hit a phase like that too with a part of my marriage that we could talk about later, but it was the hard, but the best thing was to learn it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually feel sorry for you that you have this struggle.
Yes.
That you literally can't control. You don't have the self-control to control
yes.
it. And it took me to realize
it's not you.
I feel bad, like
you do. You start to pity that person.
Gosh,
you do.
I am so sorry. This is such hard.
The struggle.
Yeah, hard struggle for you. And then we hit a therapy session, which you asked earlier if we did therapy.
Yeah.
Did you do a lot of therapy?
Oh yeah, from the minute like we were in therapy 18 out of 20 years.
Okay, so we did no therapy, but mostly because we were too poor.
Yeah,
we lived a very poor, struggle fest life for a long time, which I think a lot of people relate.
100%.
Like therapy is luxury.
Yeah,
which is why ChatGPT is my therapist, right?
Listen, we were able to do therapy because he worked for an airline that had an employee assistance program.
See?
And so we would do our 10 free sessions every time, which just tells you, like, if I say we had a lot of therapy, it's a lot of times.
We needed it. But we had, and really, like most of our marriage, it was like, you don't talk to people about like your friends or your families, like your big struggle, because you don't want them in. You don't want to know those things or judge your person when you can stay with them forever.
Especially my thing. Like I didn't tell my mom for 13 years.
I'm going to say it to you a long time.
Yeah.
Up front with my one sister, which is the one sister that was always like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why you don't tell people, right?
No.
To have therapy, that would have been so helpful. But at the end, when my ex took me seriously, like, oh, she's really serious. Please put me try therapy. I'm like, I mean, I'll go with you for a few times, but I'm like, my foot is here. This is what we're doing, And I remember the therapist looking at me after like session 2 and being like, he'll never change. I'm like, thank you. I know.
But that's what you need sometimes though,
Yeah. The reassurance of like,
it's
like,
okay.
In your head. Like, this is who he is, which that is Jake.
Yeah.
We know, we both think like that is who he is.
Yep.
Which is great.
It is. Yeah.
It's not great for my life partner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was knowing I did absolutely everything I could. And so I'm glad I had the process of, we talked about it and I was like, it's coming. If you don't change, it's coming. It didn't change. And then, okay, we're separated. If you don't change, it's coming. And then it was move out. And then it was filing. Then it was mediation. I mean, it was everyone like, he
was still surprised.
Yeah. And like for most people, divorce does not happen quickly. But people are still surprised when I say like our divorce took 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It did because it was a process, especially when you're not on the same page of both just wanting to get it over with.
There's like a song, a Kelsey, these eyes.
Yeah, Kelsey Ballerini.
That song that's like, were you blindsided or just blind?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm like, I was like the story of like,
all the above.
blindsided by this. Like,
Yeah.
if anyone should know, it's you.
Yeah.
That this was coming.
Yeah. Because it's true. Like, you're just, you can't be blindsided. When I'm giving you every opportunity now, I'm telling you it's coming and I'm telling you how I feel. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, his parents even knew that we were separated, but that was because I waited 13 years and I think like 8 infidelity episodes later until I finally told our family. I told his parents.
That's also something that's different is I feel like people are like, oh, if someone was like cheating on me, I would be out in one second.
One time is all it would take.
And then that makes you hide your
because you're the idiot.
Like you're like, but no, this is my family on this is the kid, my kids. This is like my person, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and so it makes you feel like people are gonna judge you like you're stupid for staying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look how many times you stayed and chose to stay because it was that worth it to you to try to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, people ask and 10 times that I know of.
Yeah.
That I know of. And then people look at you like, girl, you are stupid 10 times.
Yeah.
And you're like, like.
And do you know what's crazy is that then no one asks you why you got divorced. They're like, really, like, honestly, like, well, have a conversation with you. Tell me, like, people talk behind, like, so.
Oh, yeah.
Why are they getting divorced? What's going on? And then no one talks to you about it.
Yeah. Well, and you have your different stories. Jake you have to be the villain in his story. I am absolutely the villain in his. It's unreal.
Also, something was really hard to swallow.
Right. I mean, for me, because, what he was saying wasn't a lie. I was divorcing him. I did file. I did kick him out. I did ask for a separation. I mean, I was so by the book. I wrote an email. I mean, so that it was dated, so that the court knew I was asking for a separation.
Because you knew he'd take you to the mat.
Yes.
That's the thing is everyone has to do their things differently and set themselves up.
Yeah. And I've always had to be so careful, which is why I'm so careful about, like, there's things that I will not talk about on public.
For this, for like our podcast and like our website and everything is because it's like you are so detailed in the things that you.
Yeah. Because I've had to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're so good at that stuff.
Yeah.
Where I'm like,
I've had to know it all.
Everything's going to work out fine.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm totally the opposite. I've become so, cynical, is that the right word? And I call it practical and realistic.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, which we'll talk about, like in dating, I'm a hopeless romantic, turns out, which could make you a big idiot. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I didn't know a whole lot when I married somebody, so I guess so.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in. Yeah, it's terrible. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And
I know.
I love that one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, which we'll get there. But yeah. So, I mean, I feel like this topic could be so deep. And so I'm trying to like talk about it, but keep it light at the same time.
Yeah.
I think when like the biggest points what are the biggest points that you want to make about, divorce and like, I mean, we've talked about how you know when you know, and that's so important.
You need to have that moment. So like if you don't have that feeling of like, this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
Wait for it.
I think the biggest thing was I thought I was prepared and even I wasn't, and you absolutely weren't. No offense.
I was not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's kind of what led us to creating our free divorce checklist, right?
And that's something to me that like if someone had that checklist for me, that would have lightened my load 100 times.
Yeah.
Like just to be like, okay, I didn't think about that because most people going through this have never done this before.
Mm-mm.
They don't know what to ask. I remember like you said divorce decree earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that meant. I had a sister that had gotten divorced and she's like, do you want me to send you a divorce decree? I'm like,
yeah.
I've never even heard that word in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, now that's familiar to us because we've done this and we go through it. But like to have that on a checklist to be like,
I know.
Learn about a divorce decree.
Yeah.
That's so helpful. So I'm excited for people to have that. That's what this whole podcast situation.
Yeah.
Excited for the resources for people.
Yeah. 100%.
You always say start here.
Yeah.
That was like, that's your big catchphrase.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. If someone had like a start here for me.
Yeah.
Which we're going to have start here's for a lot of
100%.
as we go through. Like, I'm excited for all the things like trying to find new friends that are in your same situation. Start here.
Yeah.
Starting to date, start here. Like,
Yeah.
how to find yourself again, start here.
Well, what do you do also? That was I got sidetracked. One thing we started talking about is one, you guys, you move on in different phases, you grieve in different phases. I finally grieved when like it was 2 years of I didn't feel any of it. And then I had literally like last March, a triggering episode occurred. It was something my kids said that literally took me back to that first time that I had the anxiety attack. And honestly, I'm still in therapy trying to figure it out. But that was when all the grief came out. That was when it was
zone.
Yeah. And it wasn't just numb, but it was, do I really want to do this? Is this really what I'm doing?
Right.
Is this really happening? And I panicked. We had our mediation scheduled, and 2 months before the mediation, I panicked and couldn't decide if this was what I really wanted to go through with or not.
Yeah.
And we had 10 days where we considered reconciliation.
Really?
And not a lot of people know that. But during that 10 days, so he actually had a significant other or a partner or a person that he was seeing.
At that point?
Uh-huh.
When you were considering?
And during that 10 days, he had told me that he would stop talking to her, and he didn't. And that was a light bulb moment of like,
what am I doing?
You're back in your phase again.
Yes, but that's just like something I feel like everyone has to work through, is we will always go back to that like trauma. We will always go back to that spot.
Yes.
Naturally.
Yes.
And that's what all of this is about, learning how to do things new.
Yeah.
Learning how to change those habits, to realize, hey, no, actually, I don't have to go to that thought process. I don't have to put up with this. I want more for myself.
I swear I saw that like on an Instagram. Yeah, that it said, you're not going back because you miss them or you love them or it was good for you. You're going back because it was comfortable.
Yep.
And that was huge. That was huge for me when I read that. And then
that's a good reminder for so many things in life.
Well, for sure. And then that's when I really started grieving and went through the grieving process of like, and it didn't help that he kept trying to reconcile after that. And I was wishy-washy. He was consistently wishy-washy for April, May, 4 months, and was still in a relationship with somebody else, but sending me emails of like, let's get back together. Can we get back together? And I was consistently like, even though like the weirdest thing is I, for whatever reason, had this love like it was somebody. You know how they always say like when someone dies, it immortalizes them and you don't remember the bad and you forget all the bad things that person ever did and they just become magnanimous. Yeah. Well, that's almost how it was with him, is that when I actually knew it was over and began to grieve, he all of a sudden became perfect. Yeah. And I forgot all the crap and was
my first boyfriend.
I was just openly grieving it. And my family was staring at me like, are you psychotic?
How have you forgotten all
Yes. And so that was a phase that I went through of like, what are you doing? Why do you feel this way? And my mind knew I shouldn't feel this way. And my heart was feeling so. And then you go through that, and I went through the therapy, and I went through, and had this reality check, this conversation one day with my cousin, and it was just this reality check, and it snapped, and I was done.
But I don't like
he makes really good carnitas, but he's got to go.
But no, killer on churros. But
yes. Oh my gosh, it's so funny you remember that. Yeah. But thanks. But yeah, that was my, I think you had a moment, I had a moment, and then you go through the process.
Yeah. Everyone's looks different. And that's what you just have to be okay with, is that there is no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And get you from one step to the next. It's a day at a time. Sometimes it's a month at a time. But that's how anytime we're in a big life phase.
Yeah. Yeah.
A life change.
Yeah.
And like when I got my new job, it's the same thing. When like your first kid moves out of the house.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
So bizarre. So
So for sure, we're gonna add a little bit of a 30-minute episode on this one. We'll do a little Uncharted confession. So if you're not a member, and you want to hear the tea, then subscribe and become a member of Uncharted Friends is what we have, our phase friends, and listen to our Uncharted confessions. We'll talk a little bit more about the specific things that led to both of our divorces. And if you're just looking to figure out how to make that decision or what to do, like Melissa said, we have a free PDF for you guys available.
Which is honestly, I wish I could send it to friends.
I know, it's so golden. Yeah, and it's that divorce checklist of if you're considering it, if you're in the moment, if you've just been left, look at this checklist.
Which is
so
website.
Yeah.
You're so good.
I know.
You said all this stuff.
Check it out.
Good. So our website has a link for it. Is it at the bottom, right?
Yep, at the bottom.
Free.
Yep, you can sign up and get that PDF. So, okay, well, let's wrap this one up. Yeah, and get going into our Uncharted confessions. Yeah. Thanks for listening today. Please like us, give us a comment, subscribe. And again, like Melissa said, check out our website. It's got so many resources on that.
It's going to be so fun. So.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Yes, perfect. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an update. Just a quick reminder, everything we share here reflects our personal experiences and opinions. We're not legal experts, therapists, or even financial advisors. We're just two people navigating life and sharing what we've learned along the way.